Hey guys, it's Junior. No, it's been a hell of a long time since I've done one of these, but I figure since, we're all in quarantine, we're not doing anything better, I figure I might as well get back to making another video. A while back, I did a video where I just showed my entire Blu-Ray collection. Since making that video, I've since upgraded to 4K Blu-ray. So I decided to just do this new video showing you how much I love physical media by showing you all the 4K Blu-rays that I have. I dug them all out from my shelves. I alphabetized all of them, so that's the order I'm going in. And without any further ado, let's just get right into this. Okay, so starting off, we got 1917. This is one of the first movies I saw earlier this year. I didn't get to see this in the limited run that they did last December, but I saw this as soon as they did the wide release in January, and I fell in love with this movie. I actually saw it 3 times in the movie theaters, but I just was blown away by this film. I absolutely felt like this deserved to win Best Picture, and was really mad when it lost to Parasite, which, I mean, no disrespect to that film, it is good, but I felt like this was just a masterwork in cinematography, in directing, acting, everything about it was just fantastic. I love this film, and it looks gorgeous on 4K. After that, I got Alien Covenant. I know it's a really divisive movie. A lot of people straight up even hate this movie. I've always liked it just okay. I've always liked this film. I get, though, why people don't like it. I see why it has its haters. It's dumb. I get it. It's not the best movie, but I won't lie that I was entertained. I guess you can say it's a guilty pleasure of mine. I know that it has its problems, but I still like it. I enjoy it. I don't think it's terrible, like most people say. I don't think it's the worst of the Alien films. I like it. I enjoy it. After that is Alita Battle Angel. This is a really underrated film. I remember thinking that this movie was gonna suck because it kept getting pushed back, and then I finally saw it last year, and I was like, wow, it was actually pretty good. Next up is Annihilation. I don't know why I own this film. I'm not even really the hugest fan of this movie. The first time I saw it, I was sort of... I didn't really know what I thought of it. I didn't really like it, though I couldn't really say I disliked it, but it just left this weird feeling in me. But I bought it again on Black Friday because it was on sale, and I was all like, well, I assume this movie would probably look really good on 4K, which it did. It does look really nice on 4K. And it's one of those movies where I try to get something new out of it with each rewatch. I mean, I've seen this movie a couple of times now. I still can't really tell you what it's about. But I guess that's kind of what keeps drawing me in, is the fact that I can go in and kind of like look for new things and kind of get this sort of new experience from it. So I guess I'll give the movie that, if anything. So yeah, that's that one. Next up is Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm not actually a huge fan of this movie. I only own it just because I like to have all the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. But I mean, it's okay. It's got some okay jokes, some decent set pieces, but overall, very limp story in my opinion, and it's not as good as the first one. But I mean, I got it anyway, just because, well, it's part of my collection. I don't regret owning it. It's fine. It's something that's decent to watch from time to time. So there's that. Next up is Atomic Blonde Steelbook. This is a really nice steelbook I got for a really good deal at Best Buy. Next up is Aquaman. This is a movie that took me a while to warm up to. I didn't really like it the first time I saw it in theaters. I thought it had a very messy storyline that threw too much action at you to just distract the fact that the writing wasn't as good. But I watched it a second time and I realized, it's not that bad. It's actually pretty fun. It's a lot better than half of the other DCEU movies. Has really great visuals. It looks fantastic on 4K, by the way. And then next up, we got the Avengers, first one on 4K, looks pretty good. And then next up is Avengers Infinity War. And then, of course, we got Avengers Endgame, which, again, was another massive experience in the theaters. And, it's a movie that I really like, though I will admit it did kind of... It got a little worse with each rewatch, but I still enjoy it. Next up is Baby Driver. This was one of my favorite movies of 2017. Next up, we got Bad Boys 1 and 2. This is both films, obviously. I still have the third one, which I should pick up soon. But these are fun, dumb action movies. It's kind of weird. I think the first movie is technically a better film, but the second one is much more entertaining. Next up is Bad Times at the El Royale. And of course, we got Batman Begins, classic, the first installment of the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy. Next up is Birds of Prey. It's actually a more recent pickup of mine. I know a lot of people didn't like this movie. I thought that it was pretty underwhelming the first time I saw it. I gave it a rewatch the second time, and I actually found some more enjoyment in it. It's not a perfect movie. It's not... He doesn't have the best story. I think the villain is really weak, but I still think that Margot Robbie does a really good job with Harley Quinn, and she pretty much carries the movie. So it's worth it just for her. You know, her performance is really entertaining, and the action sequences are actually really good too. So there's that. Next up is Blade Runner: The Final Cut, 4K. It's definitely the best looking older film on 4K. This movie looks astounding. Then we got its sequel, Blade Runner 2049, which in my opinion is even better. I think this is an overall improvement on its predecessor. It has a better story, in my opinion, better characters, obviously better visuals, and just more intrigue. It's a filmmaking marvel, in my opinion, and it's definitely one of the best looking 4K Blu-rays that I own, if not the best looking. So if anyone is thinking about collecting 4Ks, I definitely recommend getting this one. Next up is Black Klansman. This is another one of my favorite movies from 2018. We got Black Panther. And you know, a lot of people like to hate on this film. I like it just fine. I've always thought that this was a good movie. I don't think it's the greatest film of all time. I don't think it's like the best MCU movie, as some critics stated. I wouldn't even put it in the top 5 or the top 10. But it is a solid film. Next up is Bohemian Rhapsody. This is a movie I actually really enjoyed the first time I saw it in theaters. And I watched it again, and I was like, okay, I saw more of the problems. I didn't really think that the story really lived up to this man's legacy. But it's still nice to watch this for Rami Malek's excellent portrayal of Freddie Mercury, so there's that. Next up is Bumblebee. Next up is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Probably my favorite Marvel movie, Marvel Cinematic Universe film. Next up is Civil War, which I don't think is as good as Winter Soldier, but still really fun. Next up is Captain Marvel. Again, I only have this just because I like to collect these movies. I don't really have much to say about this. So, moving on. Creed 2, which is, again, movie I really like. Next up is The Dark Knight, classic, obviously one of my favorite movies. Nolan knocked it out of the park with this. Heath Ledger, still the best on-screen Joker, in my opinion, and it looks amazing on 4K. Next up is The Dark Knight Rises, which I just have because I want to complete the collection. As a lot of my longtime viewers know, I'm not the hugest fan of this movie. I think it has way too many plot holes. I think Bane was an interesting character, but it was kind of wasted. And overall, it felt like a weaker conclusion to the story, but it's still fun to watch for like the solid action sequences, the good performances, and I like some of the story beats. It's just, I don't know, it wasn't the perfect movie, in my opinion. Next up, we got Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, a sequel to Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Okay, and then next we got Deadpool 1 and 2. I think I'm one of the few people on planet Earth who actually prefers Deadpool 2 over Deadpool 1. I know a lot of people like Deadpool 1 more. I just think that Deadpool 2 had a better story, had better jokes, better action, but I still like both of these films equally. I mean, I would give them both like the same grade, a B+, but I think the second one is just a little bit more fun to watch. And then next up, we got Die Hard, the original classic. Still like to watch this every Christmas. I don't care what anyone says, this is a Christmas movie. Next up is Doctor Strange, again, another movie part of the MCU. Not one of my favorites, but I don't think it's one of the weaker movies either. It's like right in the middle. It's like middle tier Marvel. Next up is Dunkirk, which is another Nolan movie, one of my favorite directors. So, next up on the list is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And then next up, we got a couple Fast and Furious movies. So we got Fast 5, probably my favorite of these. I flip-flop between this one and 6. But just rewatching these films, I'd probably have to say this one's my favorite. And then after that, we got 6, and then we got 7, Steelbook, and then we got Fate of the Furious, and those are all of the 4Ks that I own of the Fast and Furious collection. So moving on, we got Finding Nemo. Why do I own this on 4K? I don't know. I mean, I only ever had the DVD of this. I wanted to get it on Blu-ray. 4K was on sale, got it, and Disney Plus dropped like a month later, and now I'm stuck with this. Whatever. I don't know. I got it. Next up is First Man, directed by Damien Chazelle, one of my new favorite directors in Hollywood. Next up is Ford vs. Ferrari, one of my favorite films of last year. A very solid, very engaging, true story. Next up is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. I know a lot of people don't like this film, and I totally get it, but me, I'm a big fan of monster movies, so if a monster movie has really great kaiju battles with not a lot of focus on human characters, I don't really care, because I'm there for the kaiju, I'm there for the monsters, I don't give two craps about the humans. So just give me a good monster showdown and I'm in. And this is exactly what I got from this movie. So I had a lot of fun with it. Next up is The Great Gatsby, the only film of Baz Luhrmann that I like. Next up is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I actually really like Guardians 2. In fact, I'm one of the people that likes this more than the first one. Next up is Halloween, the reboot. I actually saw this film with the boys on Halloween night, which was a great experience. Just seeing that film in the theaters with an audience was pretty fun. Next up is The Hitman's Bodyguard. As you guys may remember, I did a review on this channel a while back. This is one of those films I picked up on Black Friday. I watched it once, I enjoyed, and I haven't touched it since. But I did enjoy it the second time watching it at home. Next up is Hobbs and Shaw. This one I think is just okay. It's one of the lesser entries in the Fast and Furious saga. Next up is How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. Really underrated in my opinion. I feel like no one really talks about this film. I remember I went to an early screening of this. I saw this like a month in advance. That was a really great conclusion. And I felt like not a lot of people talked about it. I don't know how this movie did at the box office. I don't know if it was a success or not. But I mean, I hope it was, because it was a really good film with really great animation and just a really emotional conclusion to this saga. Next up is I Am Legend. Next up is Inception, probably my favorite film from Nolan, and another one of my favorite films of all time. Next up is Incredibles 2. Next up is Incredible Hulk, definitely one of the more underrated films in the MCU. I actually really like this film. I think it's but maybe it's not a great MCU film, but I think it's like a solid monster movie. I like to watch it just for that. Next up is Independence Day, really fun movie. Independence Day Resurgence, not as fun, but I own it just because the visuals are nice and it looks good on 4K TV, so whatever. Interstellar, phenomenal Christopher Nolan movie, a blast watching this in IMAX and a blast watching at home. Iron Man 1, Jason Bourne, my least favorite of the Jason Bourne series, but I still like it just fine. And then we got John Wick 1, and then John Wick 2, John Wick 3, all equally badass. Joker, really solid film. Really happy that Joaquin won Best Actor. I just rewatched it. Still a really good film. I really like this. And then we got Jumanji, the original 1995 one, Steelbook. It's really nice. Looks like the game board. I really love this design. The movie itself I still really like, although I don't like as much as I did before when I was a kid, but it's still a solid movie. Then we got next up the sequel, Welcome to the Jungle. And this is a steelbook of all the Jurassic Park movies. This is Jurassic Park, Jurassic Park Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World, and Fallen Kingdom. I think that I like maybe half of these movies. The other half are pretty bad. But I guess they're all kind of fun to watch. Alright, y'all, we're halfway through the collection now, so let's wrap this up, let's go. Alright, so next one is King Kong, the 2005 Peter Jackson one. Next up is Kingsman, The Secret Service, and then Kingsman, The Golden Circle, Steelbook. Knives Out, a film that I really like. It's probably my favorite film of 2019. And then we got Kong Skull Island. Not my favorite iteration of King Kong, but still a fun movie regardless. And then we got the Lego movie. And then the Lego Batman movie. Life, I feel, is a really underrated film. A lot of people say it's basically just Alien, which it is, but I still think it has enough really good visuals, solid acting, and really tense setup to make it stand on its own. So I really like it. Next up is Life of Pi. Next up is Logan, Steelbook. Really love this. And we got Mad Max Fury Road. This is something I would like to demo just simply for the audio. Next up is Man of Steel, the first installment of the DCU, and personally what I feel is one of the more underrated superhero movies of the last decade or so. The Martian, extended cut. Really solid film from Ridley Scott with really fantastic visual and a great performance by Matt Damon. Next up is The Matrix, one of my favorite films, which a lot of you may remember. I originally said this is one of those films that everyone liked that I didn't like. I've since changed my mind, as I said on my Blu-ray collection video. I've changed my mind about this film. I actually really like it now. I can't say so much for the sequels, Matrix Reloaded, although I still think it's fun to watch because it has really good, nice action sequences. I still don't have the Matrix Revolutions on 4K yet, but I will get on that soon. Next up is the Maze Runner, and then after that I got the Maze Runner Death Cure. Next up we got a couple Mission Impossible films. We got the first one, and then we got Mission Impossible 3, and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, and easily my favorite, Mission Impossible Fallout. I don't have Rogue Nation on 4K, and I don't own Mission Impossible 2 at all because I don't like that film. Next up we got The Mummy, the 1999 one, the decent one. Next up is Murder on the Orient Express. This is one of those films I bought on Black Friday. I watched once. I didn't really like it as much the first time I saw it in theaters. This isn't really something that I would go back and rewatch, although it does look really nice on 4K, so I will give the movie that. So next up is Onward, another recent release. I know it's on Disney Plus, but I actually really like this film, so I figured it was worth getting on physical media. Next up is Overlord. I think this was one of the more underrated films of 2018. Not a lot of people saw this movie or really talked about it. But I thought it was a lot of fun. It is kind of slow building in the first half. Nothing really happens in the first half. I think the opening is really exciting, and then the middle kind of drags for a bit, but then the third act definitely picks up again. So I think it's fun, especially for horror fans. I definitely recommend this film. Next up, we got Pacific Rim, the OG one, and then we got its lesser sequel, Pacific Rim Uprising, which I own. Honestly, I don't know why I own this. I can't really defend this film. I just own it. And then next up we got Pitch Perfect, a pretty good comedy with some really nice performances in it, and I really like the music, so yeah, why not? I like it. Next up we got Pokemon Detective Pikachu. It's probably my favorite video game movie. I liked it way more than I was expecting. I think even for a non-Pokemon fan as me, like myself, I just think it's a solid, fun movie on its own right. Next up we got Prometheus, another controversial movie in the Alien saga. Next up, we got A Quiet Place. This is one of my favorite movies of 2018. Was really bummed when the sequel got pushed back because of, things. But I really like this film. Next up, we got Rampage. I know it's not the greatest film, but as I mentioned before, I like monster movies, and this gave me a lot of awesome monster action, so I own it. I like it. Yeah, that's the end of that. Next up is Ready Player One, really fun movie from Spielberg. Next up we got Rise of the Planet of the Apes, another really solid entry in the Planet of the Apes franchise. Rogue One, Star Wars story, probably the best of the Disney Star Wars movies. Shazam, probably the most fun in the DCU movie, not the best, but the most fun. And then we got this is the Spider-Man Legacy Collection. This is a steelbook containing Spider-Man 1 through 3 and the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. Obviously, I'm not a huge fan of the Amazing Spider-Man films, but they're decent watches. And then, obviously, the original Spider-Man films, the Raimi films, have a lot of sentimental value to me. And yeah, I own those. And then next up, we got some more Spider-Man movies. We got Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and Spider-Man Far From Home. After that, we got Sicario, Day of the Soldado, Solo, which I actually really enjoy. I think I've already mentioned it before on this channel that I like this movie. Next up, we got another recent entry. We got Sonic, which, you know, I didn't think I would like at all, but I ended up really enjoying when I saw it. Thank God they changed the design. And then we got the J.J. Abrams Star Trek film, Star Trek, and then got Into Darkness. I really like the first one. I do not like Into Darkness. I really liked Beyond, though I don't have that one on 4K yet. Star Wars The Last Jedi. I know, really controversial. Why do I own this? Because I want to own all the films in the Star Wars collection. I'm a completionist, I don't know. And also, it looks really good on 4K. That's all I'm going to say about that. Rise of Skywalker. I'm just going to use the exact same defense I gave for Last Jedi. No more nor less. Straight Outta Compton. Really solid biopic directed by F. Gary Gray. Terminator 2, Judgment Day, a really great film, although the 4K transfer on this is actually pretty lacking. It does not look as good on 4K. Thor Ragnarok, definitely one of the more, the most fun of all the Marvel films, if not, I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's definitely the most entertaining. Transformers, I really like the first Transformers movie. Next up, we got Us, a movie which I don't even like. And honestly, I'm thinking about making a video essay on this film, just explaining why it doesn't work. I literally only got it just because I saw it was on sale on Black Friday, and I saw my friend got it, and I was all like, well, damn, if he got it, well, then I should get it. So, I don't know. I think I'm gonna make a video on this film, actually, just so I can explain, like, what doesn't work about it. Next up is Venom. Again, it's another guilty pleasure of mine. Next up is War for the Planet of the Apes. This is probably my favorite of the rebooted Planet of the Apes trilogy. I think it's definitely the darkest, but I definitely think it has the most powerful story. The pacing could be a bit slow, but I think that the themes and the performance by Andy Serkis make it all worth it. So, it's a really personal favorite of mine. All right, next up on the list is Watchmen, the Ultimate Cut. I definitely don't recommend the Ultimate Cut. I definitely think the Director's Cut is the preferred version. The Ultimate Cut is just the Director's Cut with these animated segments from the graphic novel interwoven into it. But I still really like this film. Took me a while to get around to, but I like it. Next up is Wonder Woman. This is probably the best in the DCEU. And then we got mostly X-Men movies coming up. So this is the OG X-Men trilogy. This is X-Men X2 and then X-Men Last Stand. And then we got X-Men First Class. After that, we got X-Men Days of Future Past. And then X-Men Apocalypse. And finally, X-Men Dark Phoenix. Easily the worst of all the X-Men films. Well, actually, that's not true. Still think this is better than X-Men Origins Wolverine. But it's definitely the worst of like the X-Men movies. And I only own it because it was on sale on Black Friday and I wanted to add it to the collection, so yeah, there we are. And that is it, guys. That is a wrap on my 4K Blu-ray collection. Thank you so much for watching this video and embarking on this very long journey with me through all of my movies. I greatly appreciate you guys clicking on this video and taking the time to watch this. I'm thinking about doing more videos in the future, such as like movie reviews, TV reviews. I'm also thinking about talking about gaming in the future because I want to try new things on this channel. So if any of those ideas sound interesting to you guys, please let me know down in the comments. And if there's any kind of material that you guys would like me to cover, I'd greatly appreciate feedback. So please just let me know. And I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.